Street, you fucking bum! You gave up on life, didn't you?
Hey guys, welcome back to the Blood and Black Rum podcast. I'm Ryan from ColdSploitation.com, and I'm joined with my co-host Martin.
How's it going?
Love is in the air. Love is in the air. It was in the air. It wasn't. You know what though? We're keeping it the spirit alive at Blood and Black Rum podcast. So much so that you and I went to the movie theaters together, and we were the only other. There's only one other couple in the theater with us for our special matinee that we took in. So it was very romantic time.
It was. Happy Valentine's Day, honey bear.
You know what? We don't do that often. We're not able to get out that often together. So it was very nice. It was very nice. And you know, again, we don't watch movies together that often anymore. So it's a special occasion. I didn't wine and dine you though first, but also you're not a wine drinker, so it would have been wasted on you.
Well, what wine are you getting at Applebee's?
No, you're eating fancy though. I would have been. I would have got the Sam Adams Brutus.
I was gonna say you're getting a Brutus, and you're gonna like.
That's right. Yeah, and spinach artichoke dip. I will spare no expense. And the 2 for $25. Okay, you can order off the 2 for $25. I'm not cheaping out here. Yeah, but no, it was fun. It was fun to get out. And of course, you know, most of the time when we go out for like a afternoon matinee. And again, at our small local theater, there's not very many people ever there. And again, we lucked out and we really had no crowd. So that was nice. And yeah, we apologize for not getting this done for Valentine's Day. It is technically a Valentine's Day episode, but we missed the boat on going to see the movie for Valentine's Day. So this comes a little bit late, but that's okay. That's okay. We've done a couple of other Valentine's episodes in the past too. We did Valentine, we did My Bloody Valentine, and we've done My Bloody Valentine, the remake as well. Did we do any other ones for Valentine's Day? I can't think of any others. I think that's probably it, because I can't really think of that many other Valentine's themed horror movies, but we've done rom-coms, of course, but never, not specifically many Valentine's movies. But today we've got one because there was a new Valentine's-esque slasher movie released to theaters this year. Kind of interesting, bringing back, like Thanksgiving, bringing back the holiday slasher fare. And this one is called Hard Eyes. Otherwise, I like to call it Hard On. But yeah, Hard Eyes, directed by Josh Ruben, who also directed pretty recent horror films called Werewolves Within and Scare Me, but not a number of huge theatrical releases.
Oh, I did want to see Werewolves Within.
Mm-hmm. Kind of another comedy horror movie.
Oh no, just because Milana Vayntrub.
Oh, that's right. I forgot. Yeah, Milana Vayntrub's in that too. Yeah. So it's that's always a draw for you, of course.
Yes, it is.
I've never seen that one
box
either.
Office gold.
That's right. I didn't see that one either. But I've heard fairly good things about it. in the horror comedy vein. Hard Eyes is kind of a horror comedy. It's kind of a crossover of a horror movie, slasher movie, and rom-com. Kind of melds the two together into, a kind of sort of unique premise for a Valentine's Day slasher movie. Of course, you're working off of, you've got, the best Canadian horror exploitation movie that you can possibly have with My Bloody Valentine. That's tough to compete with for the holiday.
One.
Go
How
ahead,
dare
Buck.
you? That's not an exploitation film.
No, but I do like to just say the word exploitation. So
that is
I had to get it in
That
there.
is good, and we should make they need to make that genre. No, that's a hour and a half long Moosehead commercial.
Yeah, right, exactly. And then Valentine as well, not as good of a movie, of course. But still in the realm of, slasher films, especially like a 90s-esque slasher film, Valentine is. So you can go back and listen to our episode on that. I'm not the historian, so I don't know exactly what number it was, but I'm going to guess it was somewhere in the 90s?
2001 is what Wikipedia says. I don't even
know. I
remember.
meant our episode number.
Oh.
So I'm going to guess it was like in the 90s or something. I can't remember, but...
I don't even remember this movie at all.
You don't remember Valentine? You don't remember the BDSM sex museum gallery thing that they go to and stuff?
No. I mean, that's
not
Eyes Wide
bad.
Shut.
It's not. Yeah, it's not bad. It's not the best late 90s 2000s era slasher, but it does its job. And I guess I wanted to bring that up too. When I was going into Hard Eyes, I kind of expected or assumed it was going to be something similar to a 2000s era slasher film. And it it actually doesn't go that route. It's very full on sort of like the 2020s era scream slasher revival of types of films. And not only is it like that, sort of Gen Z-ified, as you pointed out when we were watching the movie, it also stars one of the guys from the new Scream revival, to actually come and be a main character in this movie. So, they're definitely capitalizing on that, revival element of Scream, and I don't know how you feel about that, but
I didn't even realize he was in Scream.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I didn't even realize that was them.
Yep. I when I was watching, I was like, this guy looks real familiar. I didn't put it together at first, and then I went back home and I just looked and I was like, yeah, there it is. He's also in the Scream movies. And I forgot too, because I think in the first Scream, he's kind of the younger, and then he kind of beefed out for Scream 6. And then,
he's totally beef here.
Yeah. He's a hunk of meat.
He's just whole slab beef.
That's right. And I didn't realize this either, but he is Cuba Gooding Jr.'s son.
Really?
Yeah, really. His name is Mason Gooding. He's Cuba Gooding Jr.'s son. So, there you go. There's a little tidbit for you to think about. And think about it for a little while.
So when's he going to be releasing a movie where he's got a sled dog team?
Yeah. We got to do sled dogs at some point. It'd be a good one, probably for that person who wrote to us about cats and dogs. This is another one probably that they would be interested in watching or listening to. So
4 years later.
Yeah. All right. So anything else you want to add to the intro here before we take a break and go into the beer?
No, just I didn't really have too much thoughts on this, to be honest with you.
No expectations from you.
Yeah, none at all. I didn't even know it was coming out. You said last time for our last episode that you were interested in doing it, and I'm kind of surprised after watching this movie that this film got a wide release, because it's definitely very borderline direct to Blu-ray stream fodder. Kind of seems like
a Netflix style direct to streaming.
Yeah, like it's kind of got that Texas Chainsaw remake vibes to it.
Sure. Yeah.
But I didn't have too much going into it. It's like, oh, okay, cool, Poster looks cool.
I don't know if that's like bringing that up a little bit with the, whether it's straight to streaming or, first in theaters. I'm not sure what to think about that anymore because you get a combination of that. Sometimes stuff goes straight to streaming. You're like, that's interesting. I don't know why it would have gone straight to streaming. It probably would have been okay in theaters. And then you get other stuff where it's like, it's in theaters and it feels like it could have been straight to streaming. And I don't is that good? Is that bad? I don't know anymore. Like we've melded the difference between going straight to video and going to theaters now, and it's kind of a.
I got news for you. If you think the fucking CEO heads of these fucking companies know what the hell they should be releasing or not,
if they're thinking straight,
the answer is no. So.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I think now we're in this this weird era of, cheap movies are going to theaters just because. And one of the things too about this, I think Hard Eyes as an idea, as a concept of a holiday right around Valentine's Day, I think people like producers and the executives latch onto that and they're like, yeah, this is gonna be killer in theaters.
Well, not only
people
that,
go out to see it.
Let's say not only that too. Be like the last point before we get into our little beer talk. Had a budget according to Wikipedia of 18 million. It's already made 23 million.
Sure.
So I mean that rate with like the lower. I agree with what you're saying because that's kind of always been the draw for at least production companies when it comes to these cheap films. They're real easy to make buck off of. With anytime if Marvel makes one or Warner Brothers makes like one misstep with a comic book movie, they're fucked because they put like $1.5 billion into them, which is stupid, by the way. Could get healthcare. That's besides the point. But and they, so they have to get a return. And I think too, like one of the nice things too, I was just thinking when we were in line to get the tickets and stuff. For this, like at our local small theater, which again is another reason why I'm kind of surprised that they had this. It's like I just love that. Like, there wasn't a long line, but we're getting the ticket printed out. The owner's right there, like how you doing? Have a good movie, like I like that, and I wish our theater was a little. I mean, as much as I do enjoy going to see movies, when it's just like the two of us or whoever the hell in there, I do miss that's part of the thrill of the theater experience is having a packed house and like seeing a new movie and getting the oohing and eyeing,
No, it's
like
true.
Like when I saw Revenge of the Sith as a teenager, or when we saw The Dark Knight in a bigger theater. So.
Mm-hmm. No, I definitely agree with that. And I agree with your assessment as well. Is it a risk sometimes putting out a movie like Hard Eyes to theaters? Yeah. But at the same time, it has a lot less to make back. So like you said, making back, $5-6 million on your budget, pretty good nest egg for you to, put towards something else. So, makes sense sometimes.
Plus, all these streaming services are like net losses for like every company that has one, like Peacock, Max, are all like bleeding money left and right.
And not only that too, when you put it to streaming, you always run the risk of somebody pirating it easily. Like you're basically offering it up to the high seas of just like, here, rip this and distribute as needed. So, it's, at least with something like Hard Eyes, you still have to rely on a bootleg dude going in and with his little shaky cam, like. Just filming the video screen. We haven't really come up with anything better still. So I definitely, I understand both sides of it. So, but it was nice to see Hard Eyes in theaters again. It kind of, like I said, it reminded me of the 2000s era slashers at first. And, obviously the film itself, as we'll talk about, is not really in that vein. But the idea itself of that 2000s era slasher, the nostalgia of going to see a slasher film in theaters again, stuff like that, it stands out. It's kind of gives you a nice little hit of euphoria. So, all right, let's talk about the beer we have on the show today. I'll let you start it off. You're kind of the mastermind behind the beer, and this is, I think, your second or third time getting this beer. So I'll let you take it and explain.
It's probably my fourth time now.
Oh, fourth time. Okay. Yeah.
That's besides. So we, without doxing ourselves, live in upstate New York. One of the biggest chains in the area for convenience stores is a little place called Stewart Shops. They're known for their novelty of having ice cream in this gas station and coffee and everything else. Back in the early 2010s, and they got their own brand stuff like all 7-Elevens, Speedways, Cumbies, whatever. They got their own like brand of stuff that's made locally or contracted out. One of the things that they had back in the 2010s was their own beer, and it was called Mountain Brew Ice. And it was $3.99 a six pack, $10 for a whole case of this shit. And it came in these crappy little, and if you go to like beeradvocate.com, it's on there. You can type in Mountain Brew Beer Ice and find it on there and see the marvelous can that they were pumping out in this little, not anything on there. It was just a bland silver can with Microsoft Paint level detail for the logo and stick figures on it, showing you all the fun things you could do up in the Adirondacks, like swim, hike, baseball, etc. And it was garbage. We called it Panther Piss in our area because it was our high school mascot. It was disgusting. And eventually they came out with a light version, and because the original wasn't ice beer, so it was designed to get you fucked up real quick, glorified malt liquor. And I'm pretty sure Genesee made it at the time. Can't confirm that, but from what I've heard from people, it was a Jenny product, and it was probably the remnants from like Jenny Ice, from the Jenny Ice batches that they were scooping up
out of the,
putting into a can. It was awful, and eventually it got discontinued after like 5 years because even like the hardcore alkies were like, no thanks, we'll take our bush, be happy. But just recently they re-released their own beer. And they've gussied it up quite a bit because they've paired with a local craft brewery in Paradox, which I don't know how many Paradox beers we've done on the podcast before.
Yeah, maybe one or two. I think we did one.
And they're based out of North Hudson, which is basically... Isn't that out by Lake George?
I something like that, yeah. Somewhere. New York's a big state, okay?
I know.
I'm not sure.
Hold on, let me look that up real quick. That sounds like an asshole.
And two, I mean, I was a original purveyor of Mountain Brew back in the day. I did get a Mountain Brew 6-pack or 12-pack, I can't even remember. And I remember drinking a couple cans of it and being like, this is hog swill. And I remember it sitting in my back porch area for a long time, and I think I ended up dumping the rest because it was truly not very good. It was like I'm at a fire and this is all I've got sort of thing. So I'll be trying that.
Yeah, it's even further north than Lake George. It's up in Essex County, like closer to Plattsburgh. So
yeah.
So deep into the Adirondacks, but Paradox is a local Adirondack upstate brewery. We've done a couple other beers. I can say pretty good for the most part, but they definitely paired with them because their stuff's starting to pop a lot more in Stewart Shops in general. In fact, when I was getting coffee there today, I saw that they had like their 4-pack of lager and an IPA in there now too. So. But anyway, so this new version of Mountain Brew that Stewart has re-released is just called Mountain Brew Lager, now proudly made by Paradox. The can looks a lot nicer this time. They actually put the time to put a nice, little logo and all that on it, though I'm a little offended. I'm docking points on this because why does it look like the Rockies or like the,
It's true.
Or like, the Alaskas or something. These mountains that are on this can look nothing like the Adirondacks because they're just like tall giant white snowy peaks, and that's not what the Adirondacks are. We're hills, essentially, glorified hills. But it's also just they got it coming out in just tall boys right now, and craft beer tall boys, as you know, it's 19.2 ounces. But it's not an ice beer this time; it's a lager, but it's 6%. So it's basically craft beer version of malt liquor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And as you drink it, it definitely is. And it's not bad by any means, I'll say. And also for the price point, you can't beat it. 2 for $4. So
it's true. I mean,
that's a pretty good deal.
It's a 1 pint, 3 fluid ounces. I mean, I'd say you get your money's worth on it. Yeah, I mean, this is my second time having it because you gave me a can previously. I thought it was okay when I had it before. You know, it is on the malt liquor-esque side of things, where it has a very malty, kind of an overwhelming sort of alcohol taste at times, even though it's not really that heavy. Was it 6%?
Yeah, which is pretty heavy for a traditional lager.
Yeah,
so.
And the other thing I would say is that, like some of the cheaper like lager styles that are brewed on this, on the cheap side, it does have a very sweet taste to it at times. I think we kind of covered that with the PBR previously, and this is in the same boat where it has that sort of like sweetness characteristic that's a little bit too, like, I'm not a huge fan of like excessively sweet lager styles, so I would say that that's my main point of contention with this beer. Other than that, though, I think it's pretty drinkable. As I sat here drinking this, nearly probably almost, over halfway, I think I like it a little bit more than the first time I had it. It's kind of growing on me, and for a cheap, if you're just looking for a beer for the night, I think you could do worse than just grabbing a couple cans of these and, calling it a day, especially at their price point. It's very, very mild for the wallet. So not bad for me. I would get it again.
I agree with you that's why it's been like my fourth time having it, because like it has grown on me, even with like this being like my sober days now of like not really even being that interested in drinking for like to have one or two.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely not bad. And it had, like, again, but that does come with, and I'm not even a big malt liquor fan. It comes with the caveat that it is pretty sweet, pretty sugary, slight breadiness to it, but it's definitely, you can imagine seeing this in a glass bottle and it having a 40 on it. But if you live in the Adirondacks or in upstate New York and you see Stewart shop around and you see this again, give it a shot. It's definitely not anything that's gonna, that's awful.
Mm-hmm.
It's, worth trying. So
yeah, definitely. All right, let's talk about Hard On. I'm gonna keep referring to it as Hard Eyes.
Is it John Carpenter's?
Yeah,
Hard
John
On?
Carpenter's Hard On. Yeah. So Hard Eyes. This has kind of been marketed as, the rom-com slasher film for this Valentine's Day, and I would agree with that. It is a by the numbers slasher film by some extents. And then again, it has a very kind of interesting premise about getting two unlike people together in a rom-com type of way. Sort of like a more raunchy version of a Hallmark movie where you have a business-minded woman who's not looking for love and a man who's very romantic, and they come together and sparks don't initially fly, but they'll come to like each other, maybe even love each other by the end of the movie. And that's pretty much what you get with Hard Eyes. It's kind of a literal mashup of the two. To the extent where I could see this becoming a sort of spin-off that Hallmark movies and mystery kind of goes with, in a much more streamlined and censored version of it, obviously. But I could see them doing sort of like like remember how Will Ferrell and who else did it? Was it Molly Shannon who did was it Molly Shannon or someone else? But they starred in like the Hallmark or a Lifetime murder mystery movie where it was kind of a parody of itself, where Will Ferrell was playing like a version of the murder mystery person.
It was probably Molly Shannon.
It could have been. I can't remember exactly what it was. I didn't watch it, but I could see something like this occurring, after Hard Eyes. Like they try to take this idea and like, obviously we have to meet the waspy crowd, so we can't necessarily have it be as violent and off-putting as something like Hard Eyes. But I could see it becoming a sort of a staple in a sub-genre. But basically, like, that's the idea. And so I guess I'll start out by asking you, how do you feel about a rom-com horror movie? Like, though it doesn't seem like it, we have and are fans of certain rom-com movies, as we've covered in the past, nostalgically. You
don't have to say that with a caveat. We love rom-coms.
Yeah, I mean, She's All That we certainly did and had fun with. So that was on Martin's recommendation. So I guess I'll ask you, how do you feel about a rom-com slasher movie?
I'm fine with it. I don't know if I consider this like a rom-com though. It's very.
I mean, it has all the tropes there.
It does, but at the same time, it's. If this is like the state, and this is where I'm going to sound like a old man get off my lawn type thing. If this is like the direction of rom-coms, of it just being this like Gen Z bibbity boppity jokey shit, it's not for me, because like some of it is funny, but at the same time, like as I was saying when we were watching the movie, it's probably, and this is even more so than that god awful fucking horrible Texas Chainsaw Netflix movie. This is probably the most like straight up like pandering to Gen Z and Gen Alpha like film I've seen in so far, because like the jokes that they make in here can be funny, but they're going to be incredibly dated within like 2 years.
Sure. And I would say definitely even now, the jokes are very hit or miss here. Some of them are funny in sort of, some of them end up being funny in sort of a slapstick way, especially during the later massacre at the drive-in theater, that are kind of slapsticky in the way that they are being portrayed. And you kind of get like a comedy of errors occurring and funny things happening to people while they're being violently murdered. So those are kind of funny. I would say some of the other elements to this movie that don't work as well are when it does try to incorporate some of those rom-com Gen Z moments, where it's relying on a very specific type of comedy that I would agree with you will not age very well. And this does happen to some extent if we go back and watch the late 90s, early 2000s slashers, looking at The Faculty Hair, some of the soundtrack choices. I'm thinking Creed.
How dare you? I was watching like Cher's Believe video the other night, and I was like transported back to 1998 and been like, man, that hairstyle, like all the chicks had in that dance floor with like the bangs like just above their eyebrows, but like this like cubicle like mushroom top thing.
Yeah,
we needed that. We need that more.
So I mean, I'm not saying that like any of these movies are impervious to looking back and sort of having that cringe of like, didn't age very well. Obviously everything is going to have that to a certain extent.
Well, the difference is the nostalgia factor.
Yeah.
So like for like somebody who's like in their teens watching this, like Gen Alpha, they're probably this could probably resonate with them longer down the line. But
do you think we're just old and curmudgeonly?
No, we are. I will fully admit, like, again, like, I'm conscious, so I carry around my straw.
Yeah, sort of those types of I mean,
Wow,
even now, I feel like
I have an iced coffee with 2 things of sugar, honey, and
oat milk. Yeah,
wow, what a unique order that you have there for your
yeah.
coffee at the you know. Oh, what's going on? Oh, we have an angry white lady alert. Oh,
Yeah. I
like
definitely I agree with the fact that, like, especially with the straw thing that keeps coming up throughout the movie.
yeah.
And then what's even more funny, like, because I'm not really sure where this movie's landing on the straw either. Is it like is it mocking her for bringing her straw around, because at the same time they're still fucking serving her a paper straw like at the bars, and that she just has to take out and put her metal straw in? Or are they legitimately like, wow, look at her, she's being,
No, I think they're taking the piss out of it because he also makes the reference as they're getting their coffee. He's like, "Yeah, here's our shitty paper straws that nobody
Yeah.
likes,"
Yeah, I mean,
while drinking it from a paper cup. I mean, a plastic cup.
yeah, it's like it works in some capacity, but I think you're right. We're gonna look back and it's just gonna be kind of very hackneyed and dated, like very soon. And I think that's part of my problem with Hard Eyes, is that it does have like on a surface, it has an interesting idea. I like the whole. Well, first of all, the opening scene is really good. I think it really sets the tone for what this movie's going to be. That it's going to be sort of like a more brutal slasher take on things. The killer is not going to be just like stabbing people, but it's going to be messy and
Exploitive.
yeah. I think it works really well. I think like it's probably the funniest scene in the movie too. Because of the whole influencer Instagram sort of like picture perfect proposal that's going on.
Fucking hate that shit.
I mean, yeah. I mean, and I think we're supposed to hate them. Obviously to a certain extent, and I think it works really well. The problem is that Hard Eyes really can't capitalize on that later on. Like that is its prime example, and everything from there is kind of doesn't work as well. It almost kind of hints at like, what would it be if we just had like a series of shorts for the Hard Eyes killer?
You know what? I was kind of thinking at first maybe it's going to go like that anthology route.
Yeah.
Like, because it kind of hints towards it. Like, they were massacres here, massacres there.
Right.
I think that would have been a lot more interesting. Like, to see like Hard Eyes hit up city after city.
Yep.
And then just, slashing away. You don't have to have like this deep premise,
Yeah.
It's just
sort of like, wasn't there a movie called Valentine's Day that was sort of that sort of premise, but it was a rom-com, and it was like various couples on Valentine's Day showing their life and stuff. Like you could go that route, and instead of it being, traditional rom-com, you just show various couples in various stages. You can get your diversity in there. You can, hit all the marks, and you kind of set the stage, and then every single one of those little shorts, you're going to see Hard Eyes doing a different thing. And because I think one of the issues that I have with Hard Eyes as a slasher film is that it doesn't necessarily flow very well. It has moments of where it's working well, where it's like setting up characters, where it's setting up the idea of this theme, and like, will love conquer all, or is love doomed to fail? And you have those scenes set up. You have very, very minimal Hard Eyes presence throughout like the first probably 40 minutes of the movie after the first kill scene. And I think an issue with that is that it is very flat for a lot of the time. Like you'll have like scenes that are good, and then you'll have very, very flat scenes that really aren't doing very much at all to either further the plot or even set like an interesting tone for what's to come. I don't know if you felt the same way, but I just got this weird cadence from the movie of like, it would be like, okay, this is interesting, and then flat, like completely like, I'm kind of bored with this. And then this is a little interesting again, and then flat again.
Well, because again, like you are correct when you say like it is like a rom-com, but it's also rom-com, slasher, YouTube short.
Yeah.
it's like, an amalgamation of things. So it's like you start off hot with that first opening scene with, these assholes getting butchered.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just lingers for like 20 minutes. Like, oh, what's going on in my life? Oh,
Right. Yeah.
rom-com stuff. And like, you're right, it has a pacing issue. My big question is, because I want to talk about it when it came to the opening part, when you see like the person getting a phone call from your boyfriend and says Babs, are you a nickname person in your phone or no?
No, not really. I'm not a
No.
nickname person. No.
So yeah, me too. Because I feel like a sociopath. Because like a lot of people in their phones have like everyone like nicknamed and shit. Like for me, everyone has like their government name.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. No. I'm the same way. I actually. I mean, I have you as Martin, of course, but other than that, yeah, I don't. No nicknames for people. It's just a straight up name. I agree with you. It makes it difficult sometimes to decipher. Like if you're just looking at your phone, like who the fuck is that again? Oh yeah. So I mean, I guess if someone had like if they like only went by their nickname, I would put their nickname, of course. Like if that was just the common thing to call them, sure. Other than that, I'm not going to make up a nickname to put in my phone for them. No. Yeah. So in like you were saying about the rom-com thing, like I think that I don't know. I struggle sometimes because like I'm not a traditional fan of rom-coms. Like I'm not going out there and seeing like checking out every single new rom-com that's coming out. So I'll watch them. I don't mind them. Some are better than others, obviously, and some are just tolerable. Some are flat out awful, and I think that's kind of the world of rom-coms. I don't know if, like from my experience, if I feel like Hard Eyes is doing the rom-com formula well or not. I feel like it is okay. I feel like I guess one of the things you have to talk about with rom-coms is how do you feel about the chemistry between our two leads? I mean, do you think that they have chemistry in this movie? Like, is there a love blossoming where you're like, oh, I want to ship them. I really I hope they get together. Because that's ideally, that's what a rom-com will do, is that you have the ship, even though they seem like an unlikely couple.
All right, you don't have to say that.
But do you feel like Allie and Jay are a good couple in this movie? Like, are you rooting for them to succeed?
I don't know. They just met.
So you're kind of like I guess that means no then, right? Like if you're ambivalent, then that would be a no.
Well, it also doesn't help that like they have like the most tepid bourgeois, like I could care less about your life nonsense. Oh no, this advertiser's gonna get fired from her $100,000 job, for a fucking ring company. You know what?
Right.
Don't care.
Where she did a poor job on that commercial anyway.
Which wasn't a poor job. It was a great job.
Hilarious.
I thought her marketing campaign was great. And I think in the fact, that's another thing too that's going to really not age this film well, is the fact that she came up with this campaign for these rings that are supposed to be like wedding rings and stuff. And it's like this is like the one thing how you always know it's like a perfume commercial, because it's like very ridiculous and fucking like 10 seconds of just jackassery and wankery, like dude walking on a beach and like, kissing a lady and like, throwing a football, and then it's just like blue.
Yeah. Yeah,
and that's what her thing is, but it's funny because it's like black and white and people are dying and having unromantic endings, and they're like, people hate the campaign, and people are posting online like, wow, this is so unthoughtful, you're getting canceled. And it's just so, that is also like another part of the film that's just like that's not going to age well at all either. Like, it's just, who's canceling people over an ad campaign on a fucking $20,000 rings?
Yeah.
If you are, you have too much time on your hands and need to direct your anger to better things.
I think it is funny because you have like this. It definitely. I mean, they did a good job with the marketing campaign because it definitely reminds me of like the ridiculous perfume commercials you'll see like peppered throughout, Super Bowl ads and stuff like that, where you get done with it and you're like, was that for a perfume commercial? I don't know what the fuck that was. Like, why am I watching like a retelling of Caligula here, but like with without all the good stuff in it. But like, so I think they did a good job with mimicking that as an ad.
A joke, yeah.
Yeah, as a joke. I do find it funny that anybody would be sitting around like canceling this out, like you said, because like I just go on my way after I see that commercial. I'd be like, that was fucking stupid. Like, I'll just be on my way because I literally don't even have two thoughts about perfume companies. But so like somebody sitting around and be like, oh, that crystal jewelry company, I'm fucking so mad. I'm going to log into my Twitter account and post a death threat to the person who came up with that ad. It is, I mean, it's supposed to be played as a joke, but you're right, it's a little over the top. But I love how ridiculous the ad is. They did a good job on that for sure. I would agree with you. I think you are spot on in saying that for the chemistry, I would say like a lot of rom-coms do suffer from this, but there is that sort of like meet cute that you're supposed to be like, oh, it's so cute that they both order the same cup of coffee that sounds like shit, and like no one wants to actually drink it, and oh, they bumped heads, and oh, they're at the same company together. But I would agree with you that there's not really any like love connection between them because it's kind of all forced together. He's basically this alpha male dude who's like, you're coming to dinner with me to do this work, and she's like, I would rather not do it at dinner. I like can we just get it done? And he's like, no, you're coming to dinner. We're going to be having it at a nice restaurant, and you're drinking champagne too.
I was gonna say, even though he's a pussy,
right? Like, I mean, I don't. It's just funny. Like, I think that they try to force the love interest a little bit too much there, where you don't really come. Like, it's a lot of exposition too. It relies on Allie like literally giving exposition about like why don't you like love? And she's like, well, because love is doomed to fail, and my parents and his parents are it's a whole bunch of mumbo jumbo that you get for exposition that's sort of meant to
they're not in love, they just want to fuck, for God's sake.
There you go. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. Why can't two grown adults just admit, let's just bone one night and see how it goes,
Listen, all you need is fucking Adam Sandler go, oh, stinks.
And it, maybe that's another thing about Hard Eyes too, is that it wants to be a brutal slasher, but at the end of the day, it does come off as very.
It's the wedding singer.
Oh yeah, but it does come off as very conservative in the way that it presents like romance, right? Like it's not okay for these two people who just met to just be like, yeah, let's have a one night stand and take it from there. You can't go that route. They have to have like the full connection before you can even have that romance. So, I don't know. I have mixed feelings about the rom-com element, and I do think that it weighs down the movie quite a bit. To the point where the ending, where we actually get the reveal of the killer, is like actually one of those times where you're like, will this movie just fucking end now? Like, because it's only like an hour and a half long, but at the end, towards the end of the movie, it has these stop starts that I think really bring it down and make the viewer kind of impatient to get where the movie's going. So like, all right, come on. We're done now. Just reveal and let's get on with things, because it does another thing that it learned from the Scream revival specifically, in that it's not just okay to have one killer or one showdown. We have to have a showdown. We have to have there's a red herring. It's not the killer. We have to get more killers involved. We have to have, like a random ass, gloomy setting to have like the final showdown. And then not only that, it's
always some goddamn church or where.
Exactly. And then it's not enough to just like vanquish the villain. Like they have to be literally nearly immortal, because they just keep coming back, shot, stabbed, kicked in the head.
Well, not only
none of it's
that,
enough.
the fact that these are actual people in the film is ridiculous because the Hard Eyes killer in this movie with the mask too is literally like
Like an
Jason,
assassin. Yeah.
like Jason X level, like running around doing ninja shit with a crossbow and like, you know, throwing knives.
Not only that, but
and a machete, and he's like invulnerable. It's
right?
like,
and the sound effect for him walking is like 400 pounds, like cracking pavement every time he's walking around. So
to find out, it's like a 10-pound Asian dude.
He weighs 140 pounds, and the other woman that's also helping him is 130. You know, I mean, a police officer for sure. You know, detective, and maybe has some physical combat training. But, yes, that's another thing of like. The film does definitely have a very Jason feel to Hard Eyes as a character, which I didn't mind. I think I like cool.
I like that. I thought it'd be pretty cool having fucking Jason running around. Like chick would have given me a blowjob at Camp Crystal. Now I'm going around. You know?
It would have been kind of interesting to have a tongue-in-cheek sort of like reason for the Hard Eyes killer. Like nothing that would make sense to anybody as like a reason.
See, one of the things they kind of, and this is one of the things I kind of thought would have been funny because they lean in, again, this leans into the whole Gen Z shit when they're like doing like the breakdown at the first crime scene of the murder. They're like, oh, it's probably some fucking poor incel. And they're like, it's probably not some incel. Like, it's like, That seemed like a move, like a slasher idea, for the modern age, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I think what we end up getting is kind of disappointing. And it like I said, it has that sort of Scream revival element to it of like trying to do too much, trying to be too twisty for its own good. I do like the fact that it does have that initial reveal after the drive-in massacre of this guy that they take the mask off and you're like, who the fuck is that? Like no one you've seen before, and it's just like some random dude. I kind of like that idea. Just like, it's just some random dude. Of course it would be to them because what are the chances that they actually know the Hard Eyes killer since he's been killing in all cities in every other year? Like they make a big point at the beginning of the movie in the news broadcast where they say like, yeah, he's been in Boston, he's been in Philadelphia. Now, for some reason, he's in Seattle. So, like, it doesn't make sense logically that these people would even ever know who the Hard Eyes killer is. When you think about it, statistically, they probably wouldn't know this person. It could be any old Joe. So I
know that I say that is great. That would be great if like the movie just ended like, who the fuck is that?
Because statistically that would just make the most sense. They don't know him. He literally just got in Seattle today for Valentine's Day. So like they wouldn't know this guy. And so I think that when the movie goes even further and it has like this whole, detective, well, that's the other thing too that I think is really problematic about this movie is that for any given 20 minutes of this movie, it'll like sometimes zero in on detectives that are working on the Hard Eyes killer in Seattle. So it's got Devon Sawa as a detective, and it's, obviously it's got the other woman is the killer. And I feel like it is a
Jordana Brewster.
Thank you.
You bite your tongue. She was in the original Fast and Furious.
Oh, okay. Is that why that's why they say Hobbs and Shaw? That's the joke.
Yeah. I didn't know that until after.
I didn't know that either.
So I just credits because I've only seen like the first 3 Fast and the Furious. I saw the first one in theaters, and when I was looking, I was like, oh,
didn't watch.
Yeah, that is. I'd say like, yeah, that is her in the Fast and the Furious.
But like, I mean, it makes sense because like,
she was also in The Faculty.
Now the joke makes sense. Yeah, she's probably like young at that time, right? Like a young.
She played
teen.
Delilah.
Oh, okay,
I don't even remember that.
No, I don't remember. But like the idea that this film just like randomly sometimes cuts to the detectives, I think is another misstep because it's another place where the film focuses on things that sort of cut the suspense of it, what's building. So it like, detectives are not really unless you're going to, the whole movie's about detectives and investigating the murders a la Saw, there's not really that much interesting to cut to a detective for, now and then, because it just doesn't really set anything up for the movie. It's really just a means of getting Shaw into the proceedings. So at the end of the movie, when it's revealed that she's one of the Hard Eyes killers, it's like, oh, okay. Like the audience is like, okay, we know that person. Like, we've seen them before. But then when you really stop and think about it, the whole idea of these two being the Hard Eyes killers, going from city to city, where she's a detective now in Seattle, just doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. You know what I mean? Like,
no, you're right.
Like, how is she just jumping precinct to precinct, working on the Hard Eyes killer at every precinct, and no one was ever questioning, like, why were you also in Boston and Philadelphia when the Hard Eyes killer was in Boston?
Why are you hopping around precinct?
Right.
Precinct.
Yeah. It just doesn't, it doesn't make much sense. I guess sometimes with these movies, like we had that same issue with, what was it? Scream 6, I mean, with the cop guy, where it like didn't make sense. It's like, this guy has a fucking, museum that he's been renting out in a warehouse and no one knows about it, with all the, the ghost face killing stuff. But, I guess these movies, they kind of, they force you to suspend disbelief. But for me, it didn't work that well. I feel like the reveal of the two killers is not really that interesting. And by that point, I was kind of like, all right, get on with it, and that scene kind of outstays its welcome. For me, at least.
No, you're right. It's too tried and true it to be even like parody, because they don't even really parody it. The only part they kind of parody and they Gen Z it up is like it's a throuple, not like
Yeah. What did you think about the violence, like the actual Hard Eyes killings?
So when they happen, they're pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
The opening's great with like, the crossbow bolts going through people and the machete getting like ripped through the photographer's head and the wine press crushing her and literally see her get turned into pulp and, and going into a barrel saying, I do on it, but spelled, like two, like in French. So it's fancy. That was really cool. It's pretty gory. A lot of the effects were practical, so that was good. Like the one, when Jordana Brewster gets like shoved onto the spike at the end and like, slowly decapitating, you see her body kind of fall down and like, that was good. I liked it. I was laughing really hard because they do talk about how Allie, she didn't want to be an advertiser. She wanted to be a doctor or a nurse. They just say she was going to go to medical school. They don't say what for. And that blood made her sick. And then the whole part where she's in like, sees the blood and just starts throwing up everywhere. Great and hilarious. Like, it's unexpected and just like, well done. Like, I'm going to be sick. It just made me think of Team America when he's like outside throwing up outside the bar and it's like 2 minutes long of just like, bleh. But yeah, I mean, they, like I said, they blew their load on the opening scene because as cool and nice as like the kills are for the most part, like how like, gruesome they look because they're, done with, real effects. And they do lean into that exploitative style of slasher. And they're not that creative after that. Like after that first one with, the girl getting turned into pulp, it's like kind of just crossbow bolt, stab, slash, it's...
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that. I do think that at times it does, kind of just drop back too heavily on generic kills after kills, The drive-in massacre is kind of cool, but it also is a little bit, too generic in the way that it presents him as like a machete-wielding
He's just like Jason running around,
Yeah.
slamming a kid into a tree with their, That's the other thing too. Speaking of like the idiot Jason thing, like the fact that like this some 140-pound Asian dude and a 120-pound cop, and they're sitting there squeezing the head and eyes out of these people. What are we doing?
Yeah.
Like, when they raided into her apartment.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it works okay for me. Like, I think the kills are pretty good sometimes. Maybe a little bit too, like, staid and relying on the machete and the crossbow bolt, which, doesn't necessarily always make for interesting dynamic. And like you said, too, when they're on screen. Because a lot of times, this movie doesn't, it goes for long periods of time without the Hard Eyes Killer at all. I think the design is pretty cool. It does, again, remind me of sort of the 2000s era slasher movies where they had a specific mask or something stand out for the appearance. So I like the idea, and I like the fact that it has like sort of the Halloween like red colored night vision goggles on it as well, like perfect for trick or treating. Like this should be a Halloween mask. They should be making night vision goggle Halloween masks. But I like that idea as well. I guess, I wish it maybe had gone a little bit further with some of the kills, but other than that, I think it's, it's pretty solid. And, I don't know. I mean, I do just take offense to the fact that it kind of treats the killers like Jason when it doesn't make sense to sometimes. So my biggest complaint with the kills and the people. What else? What else didn't we mention? Or did we mention? I think that's pretty much it. I mean, I think we got it, Yeah, I can't really think of anything else to bring up. So, all right. So we got to rate this thing on a scale of 0 to 10. Redhead delicious apple cider. Get it? What would you give? First of all, also, how do you feel about red delicious apples?
They're okay. Did the film even mention that?
No, I was just joking because the woman at the beginning is a redhead and she got turned into apple cider slosh. So that was my joke. Redhead. Get it? Redhead. You see, you didn't get it, and then I had to explain it. So it's not, redhead delicious apple cider. Well, how do you feel about redhead? Or how do you feel? Not redhead. Sorry, don't answer that. How do you feel about red delicious apples?
It's not my favorite.
Yeah. I think they're like kind of waterlogged, to be honest with you. Like,
they're definitely a low tier apple.
Low tier,
right down there with like Granny Smith.
Ooh, Granny Smith. Huh? Not a fan of those ones either, huh?
It sound like they're pink ladies or something fancy.
I probably wouldn't put Granny Smith low tier, but that's a discussion for another podcast episode. All right, so what would you give Hard Eyes?
Well, I was originally leaning towards a 6, but the more we've kind of talked about it, I'm going to lean towards a 10. Just kidding. 5.5. It's not bad. Like the amount of times when I was laughing in like from the comedy in this film wasn't because I thought it was like cringe. There is cringe comedy here, but there are funny parts of the movie. I do like that it leans into the, more exploitative side of the slasher films, but it just doesn't have a focus. For a 90-minute film, it's like so unevenly paced that it's kind of hilarious because it's like a tale of two films. It wants to be a half hour, Tales from the Crypt episode, and then it wants to be a half-hour episode of Degrassi. It's like, so it's just it works fine enough, but I mean, there's not much here. The romance is bare bones. The jokes, while funny at times, are very niche and are going to be dated terribly soon. Just because they're so, 2023. The kills at times are fun, but I think just because there's a mass amount of bodies getting slaughtered, the fact that a lot of them do end up being unimaginative, even though they are gruesome, leaves a lot to be desired. So yeah, 5.5 out of 10. It's not bad. I would watch it again for fun down the road, but I don't think there's nothing here that I would say is like, stand out or great. It's just like another run-of-the-mill slasher, but for today's modern sensibilities. So 5.5.
Yeah, I mean, I would give it a 6 out of 10. I think we talked quite a bit about, some of the problems that we had with this movie. And I think, like, I pretty much agree with that. For the most part, I think that it is a fairly mundane, rote slasher. It doesn't really offer that much different for the genre. And I think, the idea about it being a Valentine's Day movie and kind of a rom-com element to it where the leads have chemistry is, kind of has been made into a thing. But if you really think about slashers, many of them had rom-com elements. I guess I shouldn't say rom-com elements, but they had romantic elements to them where the leads had a romantic chemistry of some sort, whether it be a student, kids in school with a relationship, or Scream playing with that, where Nev Campbell's boyfriend is actually the killer. They all do that to some extent, because that is, for better or worse, that is part of movies, and the rising action is having that sort of like setup for a romance. So I don't know that it makes it that unique in that aspect. And I think what it does do is, often mixed, because it's trying to do both of those things. And I don't know that it necessarily pairs them well together. It kind of is a mishmash, and it doesn't necessarily always work. I think that it has too many periods of lulls to it that, make it kind of like it's almost like a wave where you're like up and down, like it's all right, and now it's back down again, and this is a pretty good thing, and then now it's back down again, to the point where at the end you're kind of like wanting it to be over with. So I can't give it more than a 6. I think like it's fine, it's average, it does what it does okay enough. It's definitely not offensive or something that I would say like is an actively poor movie for or a poor showing for the horror genre, but it's not like I probably wouldn't recommend it. I wouldn't say like, oh, you guys got to go out and see Hard Eyes. It's fine. It does its job. Unique enough slasher, but like with the concept of the Hard Eyes killer. But other than that, you've seen it before, so there's not much to go off of from there. And I think they're talking a potential sequel, and I would say, unless they're going to focus in more, as we said, on sort of like the various killings around the globe, in different time periods, I think that would be kind of cool to kind of focus on the serial killer aspect of it rather than the like slasher rom-com element to it. I don't really see this having much sequel potential, in my opinion. So there's that. We might be in for a Hard Eyes every Valentine's Day. The new Saw of Valentine's Day. All right.
That wouldn't be bad.
Yeah. It would be something. All right. What do we got? What are we planning next? Any recommendations? Anything big? And we got St. Patty's Day coming up pretty soon.
So no. How about a nice Western?
Oh, a nice Western. Like a spaghetti Western, or like a more Americanized Western, like a John Wayne?
I got 2 for you.
Mm.
So I'll let you pick. I tell you right now. Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, or Duck You Sucker, a fistful of dynamite.
Probably makes more sense to do Butch Cassidy. So we just did, a giallo film, so kind of go a little different direction. Instead of duck, you sucker. So,
Because I know you've never seen Butch Cassidy in the Sundance.
Nope, I've never seen it. So, yeah, that sounds good. Butch Cassidy. I think that one sounds good. I need a little Paul Newman in my life. He's got his hands in the cookies.
God bless Paul Newman, because Newman's own, seriously, God bless him, because you know what? You wouldn't think some of the stuff they make would be good. Delightful. Their salsa, amazing.
Who would have thunk that, actor, director, Paul Newman would also make a pretty damn good line of foodstuffs for you. So,
and it's a nonprofit, so
very nice. Yeah. Yeah, we need a little Paul Newman. Maybe instead of beer next time, we'll have Paul Newman salsa on here. A little saucy salsa.
I love
just crunching the whole episode.
See, this is where they mess up. Have you ever seen Newman Owns chips?
No.
See, that's where they messed up. You got salsa.
How could you? You can't have one without the other, so why not make the chips too? Yeah, that's right.
Come on, Paul. It's called vertical integration.
That's right. Yeah. Exactly. What kind of entrepreneur can he be? Didn't recognize the need for both chips and salsa.
Those thin crust pizzas, delightful. I love them. They're so good.
Yeah, that sounds good. Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid next.
Yeah,
sounds good.
It's on Tubi, and it's not poor quality, so.
Oh, good. Good.
God bless Tubi for not having a 380p video.
Yeah. All right. So you'll want to tune in for our episode on Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. We are going to be back probably in 2 weeks, I'm going to say. So if you want to hear that episode or any other episodes that we've done, you should subscribe to us on any podcast app you use. We're on it. So subscribe, leave us a nice review. That always helps us out. We're on Facebook and Blue Sky. Search for us on there, Blood and Black Rum Podcast. We also have a email address at bloodandblackrumPodcast@gmail.com where you can write to us. Let us know what you like, what you don't like, thoughts on our episodes, any other recommendations for movies. We'll take that into consideration. And you can donate to us on our Spotify page or Patreon page. Anything you donate goes back towards beer, so we appreciate that in advance. Obviously, we don't really run ads, so helps us out, helps fund us. We're like NPR or PBS over here. Funded by your donations.
Pretty soon, Daddy Elon might get us.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, Elon will be wiping us out first. We're purveyors of trash, so.
How do you know? Maybe he listens.
Yeah, I don't think so.
He's looking for our, hot and spicy takes on
That's right.
giallo films.
Yeah. I mean, I think the only Italian that Elon's interested in is Mussolini. So
he was a pretty good guy.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for listening to our episode on Hard Eyes. Hope you had a good Valentine's Day. Sorry we didn't get to get you the episode in time, but hope you enjoyed it anyway. Listen to our Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid episode, our bitchin' Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid episode next time. And until then,
take care.